So today we have Anthea here, and Anthea is a dear friend of mine. We know each other probably for around about 7 years. She is a very successful entrepreneur, a community builder. She is into wellness. She's a wellness advocate, and she actually has an award-winning business called Intelligent Directions, and it's just growing as we speak. And as if that's not enough, she also has a physical challenge that she's dealing with. She's dealing with a lot of pain in her life, and somehow pain was is a teacher in her entrepreneurship. And I'm personally very interested in that part as well. And Anthea was, she was already showing up as a leader at the age of 15 in a food outlet where she was a manager. So she started very young and she was a general manager, and now she's running her own business. And she has a passion for health and wellness, which makes sense coming from that there is a physical challenge in the background that she's dealing with. She also had a retreat, and yeah, there's a lot going on in her life, and she lives in a beautiful, beautiful acreage in Australia and the northern parts of New South Wales with her husband. And yeah, I haven't seen that new property, but it looks just amazing. So yeah, we want to talk with Anthea and find out about her amazing life, despite a physical challenge that is can be quite debilitating. So, Anthea, welcome to the podcast. And
Thank you.
maybe you want to kick us off with, a bit of your story, what you like to share with our listeners.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's probably the podcast I've been most excited to be
Oh,
on
wow.
because you and I, yeah, as you said, are very good friends and we can spend hours at a time talking. So I'm looking forward to what we chat about today. Um, Thank you for the introduction. Uh,
You're welcome.
yeah. You make me sound way more successful than I am, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Um,
That's fine. But I don't think I've exaggerated at all. That's my perspective, but yeah.
Thank you. So my story, I guess, where do we want to start specifically?
Yeah, maybe if you start with your passion for entrepreneurship and managing, and then how your physical challenge started to flare up, and what it meant to you, and how it sort of changed maybe some aspects of your life. While it didn't change your
Mhm.
direction, it changed some aspects. So yeah, maybe you want to start there.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, I guess my passion for business and entrepreneurship started when I was very young. I grew up in a family business. I remember answering the phones for my parents when I was probably, I don't know, 7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, different time, different time. My dad's phone would ring at all hours of the day, and if he wasn't there and it was ringing,
You
somebody had
just
to
pick up.
answer it. I just pick it up and
Yeah.
go get him, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, my parents had a pretty successful removalist business in Sydney as I was growing up. And yeah, I grew up in that environment. The office was in the house. They had three or four trucks kind of at a time. They would park them on our property. We had a fairly large property or in the neighborhood, and the guys would meet at our house in the morning, then they'd go off for the day, they'd come back. So there was always people in the house to do with the business. My mum ran the business, so from the office or the back end of the business, as is a common story in family businesses. And I didn't know a different way, actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
having grown up in that environment. My parents did end up splitting up when I was about 13. And for many, many reasons. But I also see that stress from the business played a part in that somewhat. But yeah, when I was 13, my parents split up, and it wasn't that amicable. It was a not a great situation. There was a lot of domestic violence,
Mm.
a lot of just not very nice, good stuff happening
Yeah. Yeah.
at that time. And so my dad wasn't that involved in with us after that. He definitely wasn't involved in things like paying child support or anything like that. So at 13, I went and got a job, and I went and got a job at McDonald's because basically we couldn't afford to eat. And um, I was the oldest out of my siblings, and I just had this real sense of responsibility
Yeah.
for my family, a
Yeah.
theme that has kind of followed me my entire life. But yeah, I decided to do what I could do, which was to go get a job, and I went and started working at McDonald's, and I really, really loved it, but I was really shy. I was
Good for
super,
you.
I was shy. I was very shy. No, you don't,
That's always interesting to
yeah.
find things that I didn't know about you.
Yeah.
Right.
I was always very bossy, but I think at
Uh-huh.
that age, yeah, my kindergarten report card actually said the only comment on it was Anthea is bossy, which for me translates into Anthea is a leader, but that's okay. But yeah,
They
probably
got that
in my
wrong.
yeah, in my teen years, especially that age, like 13, 14, and with everything that was going on at home, I was really shy. I barely spoke. And I
Yeah.
was also very young to be
Yeah.
getting a job. So I needed my mum's permission to start working. And I wasn't allowed to do anything except for clean the dining room. They wouldn't let me serve customers. They wouldn't let me, do any of the cooking. I only did cleaning
Yeah. Yeah.
until I was probably around 14 and a bit, and then they let me do other things. Um, so yeah, I would just keep to myself. I would go to every shift. I used to work um, some stages 6 days a week. So I would work every day after school, and I would work both weekend days. And I earned $4.98 an hour. And to
Oh,
me, that was amazing.
it's so,
You
I
know,
mean, yeah, that's that. I mean, I also remember when I had my first job, I was 15 and I earned 3 German marks, 3.30 German marks the
yeah,
hour. But it was a lot, many years
yeah,
before. It's interesting how we remember these things.
yeah,
It was so
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So yeah, I worked there at 15. I was given an opportunity by a really beautiful store manager who I still kind of keep in touch with on social media, and she saw something in me, and
Hmm.
she gave me the opportunity to become a shift manager. And we trialed it out for a little bit, and I was naturally really good at it. I was naturally really good at organizing and really good at, I wouldn't say necessarily managing people, but understanding people. And I was a really hard worker, so I think those three things, the organization, the understanding people, and the working really hard made me a good manager.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so yeah, I managed at McDonald's until I finished high school, so until I was just over 18. And that was a really great experience. I loved
And you
working
met
there.
your husband there.
I met my husband there. We met when we were 16. And funny story, he already had a beard and looked a lot older than 16. And I was a manager. We wore a different uniform. And so he thought I was much older than him, and I thought he was much older than me. And
That's
we
what
never spoke to each other. But but yeah, eventually we spoke to each other, and yeah, the rest is history. We've been together for 20 years now. So yeah,
that's
that
incredible
was
by itself. Just
it
that.
is. Yeah, it is. We're very lucky, but we've grown together. We've built a life together, very supportive of each other.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
we had to learn how to navigate growing up and having a partnership at the
yeah,
same time. And that's yeah, that in itself
yeah,
is quite hard. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I can imagine. I mean, So, you know, just as I said, that just by this by itself is an achievement, and we're just warming up. I mean, obviously, I know your story, at least a lot of it. So
Mm,
we're at the beginning here.
yeah. So yeah, after I actually did McDonald's has really great training. I actually owe a lot to having started my career there. And for me, it was starting my career. It wasn't just a job. I did
Mm.
5 years with McDonald's. I did their formal qualifications to become a manager. Literally, I finished my year 12 HSC exams, and then the next week I was at McDonald's head office completing my certificate in management, which I had completed in that final year of high school as well. And so they really provided great training and a great foundation for me. Then, unfortunately, my store closed. So I decided to move on from McDonald's and I went into retail. I was the 2IC second in charge of a menswear store. And within a couple of months, I became the store manager of, of that store. Yeah. A- And that I was really fortunate. It was a business that was a New Zealand company. They were expanding into Australia. They were growing very rapidly. I was managing their outlet store, so where everything goes on sale. Um, and they were trying to keep up with their growth. So they were implementing policy, they were implementing systems and structure, but mainly for the full price stores. With the outlet store, I was given a lot more freedom. And basically, I treated that as my own business. So I was allowed to do a lot of things that other store managers weren't allowed to do. I was allowed to do my own hiring. I was allowed to do my own visual
Wow.
merchandising. I was kind of given free reign of what to do in the store within reason, but a lot of it came from me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's kind of where I feel I was able to create. I
That's
took that
awesome.
store, yeah, it was fantastic. I took that store, I think it was turning around over around 250,000 a year. Within the first 12 months, we hit $1 million. So I four times the revenue of that
How,
store, the turnover.
how old were
Um,
you there? How old?
19,
19?
19.
Just for
Yeah.
the listeners to know, we're talking about someone who's just finished HSC at the age of 19, doing that.
Um, yeah, it was for me, it was fun. It was a challenge. I was also studying at the same time. So I was at uni. I had started a social work degree. My I always thought my purpose was to contribute to humanity.
Mm,
And
mm.
I started a social work degree, which I didn't complete. I actually ended up doing a Bachelor of Business and Commerce, but yeah, I studied full time as I was working full time, and I learned so much. I learned in that environment. Actually, one of my biggest lessons that I learned in that environment was how to play the game, and my mum had to teach me this because I was pretty naive, and in some ways I can be quite naive. I always expect the best out of people and give
Mm,
people the benefit of the doubt.
mm.
And in some ways, I think the world is quite pure and innocent, and that's not always the case. So
Yeah, yeah.
when I had some issues working there. I was bullied. I was bullied a little bit. Um, And one of the biggest things was that I was really, really successful in the role. And
Mm.
I also had negotiated a really good salary, obviously based on my
Oh,
performance.
yes.
And it didn't start there, but there were things going on. For example, the area manager, he leaked my salary to other store managers, and they found out that I was getting paid more than them. And so there was all of this politics happening, and I couldn't understand it because at that time I thought, if you just work hard, if you do your job, if you perform, that's the only thing that matters. Like all of this other stuff, for me, it shouldn't have mattered. But I learned a lot about human beings and that side of human beings,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of underhandedness.
Yeah.
Actually, the I was probably 2021, and that same area manager, he I don't know what the right word is. He kind of came on to me,
Mm.
and he was talking to me about really inappropriate things. And I actually just blankly, flat out told him that it was a sexual assault, what he was doing. And I think that's when I actually made him my enemy. So he knew that I was very strong and, I would stand up for myself. So from that moment on, he really didn't like me. And then after that, he licked my salary and all of those things. But yeah, it taught me how to deal with this kind of politics. And then my mom, I remember one day I was explaining to her what was happening, and she was talking to me about playing the game, how there's this game that exists, that it's not just about working hard. There is that the political side to things. And I remember not understanding it, just not getting it. Why would you want to waste your time
I mean,
doing
the thing
that?
is, it's absurd. I mean, this game that you're referring to, because it's just sabotage. Um, yeah. But has this, as you were kind of learning about the game, has this taught, what did it teach you at the time?
I think I'm a very, very strong person. I've always known who I am. If I've ever wanted to do something, it gets done, it's
Mm,
achieved. I'm actually studying a lot about human design at the moment, and
mm,
it's very fascinating because my design really aligns with who I am. I've always aligned with it. But yeah, I'm a very strong person. And so I think what that taught me was the impact that the outside world can have on
mm,
you.
mm,
You know, I really my life had to up to that point, and I know that I was only 19, 20, 21, but I had a very uh, full life up until that point. I had experienced so much already.
mm. Yeah.
Um, but I hadn't experienced a lot of that because I always, even though there was a lot of loss, a lot of pain, a lot of, things that young people shouldn't have to experience, I always created the best possible outcome from it. I always still was able to be in a place that was quite good and
Mm,
successful, and yeah, and I always created that, but in that environment it just taught me how um other people can impact your success, or what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing. Yeah.
yeah.
um
And
and just the way the
yeah,
world worked, really, like that
that's
kind of
that's
rude
right.
awakening. Yeah.
A bit disappointing. Because the way we see the world is the way we see us. So, at this point, you didn't see that yet, and because you're not kind of wired like this, and you stand in
Mm.
your power. So why would this occur to you? And then you were sort of blindsided with this, and what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, what, why? Logically, it doesn't make sense. It's not
No.
logic, but it's coming out of fear, not understanding who you are, but you already
Mm.
stood in your power.
Mm. Yeah. So yeah, from there, I finished my degree, my business degree, and I was kind of at a crossroads because I didn't really know what to do once I finished my degree, and I was in my final semester of uni, and I had actually resigned from my full-time role as that store manager. I also in that time did a little bit of cluster management. I managed another store as well, and I thought I would just take a step back. I had to do four subjects for my final semester. Usually I would do three. And so I thought I would take that 6 months off and do it. And then I ended up working in another retail store, and I actually stayed in that role. And I was working two retail jobs and finishing uni because I ended up getting bored. But I didn't know what to do. And I was really, really thinking, and business consulting kind of occurred to me. I don't know how it came about, but I remember the reasoning behind it was that I have this real need and sense of purpose to contribute to humanity, contribute to the world, to help people. I love people. I love understanding
Mm,
people, working with them, helping them to live up to their fullest potential. And then I also was just naturally really good at business. really good at
Mm.
organizing, really good at creating. And I thought, well, I can just do those two things together.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
yeah. And so I started looking for roles after I finished my final year. I worked in retail that summer, and then I think come January, February, I started applying for roles, and I interviewed with two consulting firms, and one of them, like it was okay, and it seemed like the better business to work for, and they just seemed like they were more together, more successful. But this other company that I interviewed for, I had to do all of this testing, which I actually use now in my business for hiring. But I had to do all of this testing and all of these different interviews and a presentation and all of this stuff. But I remember after the first interview, I knew that I was going to work there.
Yeah, yeah.
I just knew, and it was funny because they were on top of a shopping center, and I had gone into a store afterwards, and they didn't have what I wanted, but the lady was saying to me, I can order it in, and I was like, yeah, order it because I'll be back. I'm going to be working here soon, and so I was so confident. And anyway, I was offered the job, and it turned into the most beautiful um, role that I've had, and it really helped me to grow. So I started there as a business consultant. I learned their systems. I was 23 maybe, I think, 24. I can't remember, somewhere around there. And within a couple of months, I became the head of consulting, which was huge. It was a huge role. The person before me, I had really big shoes to fill. She had trained me and mentored me, and she ended up moving on, and I was offered that role. And we had probably, I think, around 370, 400 clients on our books at that
Wow.
time. I was responsible for all of those clients, and then our consultants, and the delivery of our services. That was a really big learning curve for me. It gave me, I actually made a very conscious decision that I wanted to work with small to medium businesses, family businesses. So I didn't want to go into the corporate world, and this is what this business did. And so it gave me exposure to a lot of businesses, a lot of pretty much every industry you can think of, from mining to retail, professional services, I was exposed to. And so I just soaked up all of this learning, all of this
Yeah.
knowledge. Um, and then I think about a year into being with that business, I was offered the role of general manager. And I actually declined the role. I I didn't I didn't think that I was ready.
Wow.
I think I
Wow.
was 24. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I was 24 when I became the general manager. So, but I didn't think I was ready. And the agreement that I had with the CEO was that he would mentor me
Mm.
and help me, and that was the only way that I would take the role. Anyway, things started shifting, and basically I was doing that role by myself for a lot of it, and we had some really great wins in that time. And again, I was elevated. In terms of my career progression, but also my learning. I learned so much. Not only, you know, I was not only responsible for my division, I'm now responsible for the whole business, for sales, for marketing, for finance. And I got really, really great exposure to the whole business. Um, and then that business changed, and I actually thought that I would work there for the rest of my life. I loved it so much. I loved the team. I loved our clients. It was a really, really beautiful place to work. Um, Again, interesting. There was a little bit of bullying that went on. A woman much older than me. I was, in my early 20s, and she was in her 40s or 40. Um, she really wanted the GM role and wasn't given it. And yeah, there was some kind of underhanded stuff happening in the background. And actually, whilst that role gave me my biggest wins and most, kind of a lot of success in terms of what I learned and how much I grew, there was a point in that role where I was totally stripped of my self-confidence, my belief in myself, my ability to do my job. It was just there was all of this stuff happening in the background. And basically after a period of time, I had no belief in my ability. Everything that I had done in the past just was thrown out the window, and I was a shell of myself. Um,
Was it due to the bullying?
the bullying, yeah, yeah, and then not being believed by the
Yeah,
leadership.
yeah,
Um, I
yeah,
remember I was actually taken into a meeting where key executives and the CEO, they all sat down and they told me what was wrong with me, all of them,
right.
for like 4 hours.
Wow.
Um, it was really, really intense, but it was so intense because I had given everything to this
Yeah,
business.
yeah,
Everything. I was working ridiculously big hours. It was affecting my health and my relationship and but I was doing it for this bigger purpose. And then I was in a situation where I wasn't being believed about things that were
yeah.
happening. And also my instincts and my what I was warning them was happening in the background with other staff members wasn't believed, and then it happened to me.
And
Um,
yeah, and I just want to interject kind of from a coaching or spiritual perspective, or how people often view success or careers or entrepreneurship. um, I see that this phase that you went through was almost like necessary to train you to go to the next level. The thing is, you and this I see it a lot. I've been through it, and it's this success, and that's fine, and you've earned it, and you've worked hard for it, and you were still so young, and then there comes a challenge, um, so big, and people go through this phase of when they then actually doubt themselves, to then
yeah,
actually find even more truth about themselves to bring it out. So
yeah,
I also want to kind of highlight it that this is part of development and entrepreneurship and growth, and it's not meant to be an easy slide up, but and I know you have gotten to the bottom, and then you come out again, and this is how it works, and then you come back stronger with
mm,
more, and so forth. So
yeah,
it probably just had to happen, and yeah, it's never fun. It's really tough, especially betrayal is a very tough one to go through.
mm,
People don't believe you, and
yeah,
you've done everything.
yeah,
But yeah, yeah,
yeah. Everything that's ever happened in my life, I believe, has happened for me and has been a very pivotal and important part of my journey. It's, these things, they don't happen by accident or coincidentally. It's part of life and part of
yeah,
the life that I'm meant to experience.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, with that business, it kind of took some turns. We actually ended up closing that business. I was made redundant. And then I was at a crossroads. Do I start my own business in consulting or do I go and work for somebody else? And I actually made the decision. I had a few job offers when it was announced because the business was closing. We actually announced it to all of our clients, and then they knew the schedule of who was going to be made redundant and when we were officially closing. And so I had a couple of job offers, and I ended up taking a job that was created for me to work in, a family run but quite large construction business. And they created a role for me, and the agreement was, we want you to work for us. We will create this role for you. We don't know what it's going to look like. We're going to work together to create it. And very soon I became bored, but I also, because there wasn't enough work and my work depended on other people. And so if something happened within the business and one of the managers was called out, then I couldn't do my work for the day, as an example, because I'm meant to be working with them. And so a lot of the time I would be, after a couple of months, I found myself doing all sorts of work that needed to be done because I felt that I needed to contribute. But I literally found myself walking around the kitchen and cleaning it because I felt so bad that they're paying me and they're paying me a really great salary and I'm not contributing
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
potential that I could be. So at that time, I decided to resign. My husband and I, we've renovated and flipped properties since we were 20, and so I think we've done 7 or 8 now. But we had decided that we would sell our apartment that we were living in. So I did some renovation work. I went overseas with his grandmother to sort out some stuff that she needed to sort out overseas. So I took a few months off and I really did a lot of soul searching. I was in Bosnia. My husband's born in Bosnia. And I was there with his grandmother. She doesn't speak English. We were staying with a friend that didn't speak English. I don't speak Serbian. And so I was in this situation where I was pretty much by myself with my thoughts for close to 2 months. And so I did a lot of thinking, a lot of journaling, a lot of soul searching, a lot of walking around the city by myself and reading. And it was a really beautiful time because I decided what I wanted to do, which was to start my consulting business. And so I came back and at 26, 27, I launched my consulting business, which was a beautiful thing for me to do. It was, I haven't looked back. It's been in operation for 8 years now, and it's literally given me everything that I could have ever wanted in terms of being able to contribute to
Mm,
the
mm.
world and put my work into the world. Um, so yeah, that's kind of probably a
That's
very
kind of,
long
so, well, let
story.
me just give a brief summary again to remind our listeners. So you were 26 at that time when you started your own business?
I'm pretty sure 26 or 27.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay. So you were a manager at the age of 15, where you met your husband. You had a general manager role at the age of 21 or something. You studied
24, 24. Yeah.
24. You you increased the revenue of a business at the age, that was before then, uh, to an incredible amount. You studied two different things. You worked two different jobs. You ran another business. And then at the age of 26 or 27, which sounds like more like 45, you you then decided, oh, let's start our own business. And I probably skipped a few things. There was more in there as well. And I mean that in itself, that's an incredible journey. So now you're running your own business, Intelligent Directions, which is it's combining everything, isn't it? The
Hmm.
family business, the entrepreneurship, the communities, and really getting a business into an effective, profitable state.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that drives me is this knowing that business owners mostly they don't know how to run a business. We're never taught this. In my degree, I studied a Bachelor of Business and Commerce. I majored in management. I wasn't even taught how to write a business plan. And, pretty much everyone in my degree, we were studying at night. We all worked full time. We were studying at night. Most of us wanted to either start our own business or be in leadership. And we weren't taught how to run a business. And that was the degree that was meant to teach you that, right? And then we have all of these other poor people out there who are in the trades or who, have a specific skill set and they go and they study and they master that skill set and then they become successful because they're good at what they do. So they start a business. And then because they're good at what they do, they have success in their business. But then their business gets to a point where
Yeah.
it's literally ruining their life. They don't have that success anymore because the business needs to be managed, it needs to be run, it needs to be done effectively. And we don't have those skills. And so for me, with Intelligent Directions, I actually created a management system that I implement into businesses to address that thing, to
Mm.
teach people how to run a business and to do all of the back end, to create their systems, their processes, their policies, to help them to hire effective staff and to know what an effective staff member is and productive staff member is going to be. Nobody teaches you how to hire. You just somebody comes and they give you their best version of themselves and you think, oh, you sound amazing, I'm going to hire you. And then 2 months later you're like, who's this person that I hired? They were so amazing and now they're not, you know
Yeah, yeah.
and so there are all of these issues that a business owner faces, and I'm trying, well, I wouldn't say I'm trying anymore. I have a system and a process, and it's been tested many, many times with many different businesses, and it works. And not only do I get to impact their business, but a lot of my clients, I have an impact on who they are as a human being. how they show up, their relationships with their family, like everything starts to improve because this one thing in their life started to improve. And all of
Yeah,
a sudden, they're able to step up and be the person who they were meant to be without all of the stress. And so
absolutely.
everything starts to improve.
Yeah,
And that for
yeah,
me is a very, very beautiful thing.
yeah. It is a very beautiful thing because business is not a standalone. It's integrated into family. It's integrated into society and who you are. And if you can, run your business with a lot of stress, I mean, it, falls back to your children, your relationship, how you feel about yourself. You can actually spend some time thinking about, other things. I mean, that is an incredible gift that people get to experience. And it is really astounding that this isn't taught at
Mm,
university. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I agree.
yeah. Yeah, and I know some of your clients and they speak so highly of you and they're so happy and they always keep coming back to you. And I know you've got the processes and more than just a process um, that helps others to grow. And because you've been through this incredible growth, starting with your family, very challenged, and there was abuse, and and then bullying at work, and lots of things. It's like a very sort of accelerated training, personal training program that you've gone through. It's like, oh, I take the steep curve.
Yeah.
Let's not waste any time. And I also know your work ethic is just incredible. um, the amount of effort you put in, and then you look, we haven't mentioned it, but then you still even have time to be part of a community book, which we will talk about also. uh, you know and do all these things and build communities also. Yeah.
Yeah.
um yeah.
I think when I look at my life, I feel like, when you come into this world, I feel like I tick the box for like accelerated, hard, learn all the lessons, like literally give me all the lessons really, really early. Um, but it's been part of my journey, and it's what's gotten me to this point. And
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
very thankful. Today I was think you wanted me to talk about pain, and today
yeah,
I'm actually going through a really, really difficult time right now. And I was just sitting outside a couple of hours ago in the sun, and I was journaling and reflecting, and I looked up the trees, and the sun was shining on me, and I just had this moment of finding the beauty in the pain, this really, really difficult time that I'm going through right now, and finding beauty in that. And I think, that's a firstly, I think that's a very beautiful thing. But secondly, I think that it's a necessary thing. Pain is necessary. And that's actually what I talk about in my chapter in
mm,
that book is pain, the lost art of well-being. And I think it's important that we experience uh, pain and difficulties in life, because if we didn't, we wouldn't know what we're capable of, but we wouldn't know the if everything was perfect all the time, we wouldn't actually know that it was, because we haven't experienced the opposite of that.
that's
Um,
that's true. And we tend to be, as human beings, we like the comfortable side, and then we wouldn't seek it out willingly.
yeah.
And maybe for our listeners to understand, on top of all the amazing achievements that you have created in your life, and a marriage for over 20 years, um, you are dealing with pain on a daily basis. And that's that is absolutely incredible. On
Mm,
top of it,
mm,
and I think that I would like to talk a little bit. I mean, you've already shared a beautiful scene, how pain is teaching you. Just, for me, I don't deal with a lot of pain. I'm quite healthy. And if I think about, oh my God, if I had to deal with this every day, pretty much, how would I be with it? And you've
Mm.
had so much learning from it, and I would really like you to share a little bit of it and what it's taught you about entrepreneurship, and that
Mm-hmm.
you can be so feeling so still so blessed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'll try and do it very quickly. I have a lot of chronic health conditions ever since I was born, and my health has been very, very challenging with lots of different conditions. Um, and then probably in 2018, I I always had some neurological issues happening, but in 2018, it's kind of when things started to go really downhill. So I've had chronic pain since I was 18 years old, throughout my whole body. At 18, I was told that I'd probably end up in a wheelchair and I wouldn't walk, but they couldn't tell me why I was in so much pain and why I was having so many issues with my back. They just told me that I'd been in a wheelchair, and they prescribed me really, really heavy narcotics to deal with it. And I thought that that was no way to live. Number one, on the drugs, I refused to use drugs to get through the day. And number two, that nobody was going to tell me that I would end up in a wheelchair, but they couldn't tell me why. It's so I refused that that would ever happen to me. Before that, I had a lot of I have endometriosis. I have a few other conditions. I would always just get sick, really sick. I've been in hospital many times. I've actually nearly died two times, two separate times. One from a skin infection that um, ended up turning septic. And so I was rushed into surgery, and I actually told my family to come and say goodbye to me. This was when I was 20 years old, to come and say goodbye to me because they didn't think that I would survive the surgery because I was too far um, gone. I was unconscious when they took me into surgery. And it took me over a year to recover. And at that time, I was working full time, studying full time, and also renovating our first property. Um, and the reason I was renovating that property, it was my family property, and we were in a lot of debt. So we had the option was that we'd lose the house, or I proposed to my mum that we borrowed money to renovate the property, and that we'd sell it and we'd be able to make money off it enough to pay our debts and then buy a new house. And so we did that. So I was doing all of those things, and in the middle of that, I nearly nearly died, and had to recover from that. Um, so there's been a lot of health challenges, but in 2018, I started having really intense neurological issues. I had a couple of seizures. And then after that, in 2019, pretty much every system in my body started to shut down. And I thought this time I prepared for my death. The first time it was kind of instant, but this time I had time to think about it because I'm feeling and watching every part of my body shut down and not having control over my body. And I started drafting letters in my head to my family, and what I wanted to say to them after I was gone. And what kind of brought me out of that was that I started to experience episodes of paralysis in
Mm.
2019, and then it continued into 2020. I had two episodes of full quadriplegia where from my waist down I couldn't move for hours, and then after that I was in immense pain. More, I'd lived with chronic pain my entire life, but then this pain that came with these neurological episodes where I was being paralyzed was even more intense. And then at the start of 2021, I had a full body shutdown. They called it acute onset quadriplegia. Basically, I was paralyzed from neck down. My breathing was affected. Some of my autonomic functions, so the stuff that just happens automatically, like your breathing, was affected. I was paralyzed for 10 days because it was that long. My brain forgot how to do things. I couldn't even picture doing things. So I couldn't picture how to walk in my head. It was literally as if my brain and my body had been separated. And I had to relearn how to do everything. So I had to relearn how to use my arms, how to wash my hair, how to put my arms up, how to walk, how to climb stairs, how to you know, basically everything. I had to relearn it. It's definitely affected my brain. Um, so I have memory loss, cognition issues, um, just basically it's affected every single area of my life. But since then, I have episodes where my body spasms uncontrollably, kind of like a seizure, but it's in my body. I become paralyzed during that, and sometimes I become paralyzed after that. So that's happened to me over 100 times since
My
2021.
God.
The
Mm.
last time was literally 2 days ago on Wednesday, and my right arm was spasming, but then it was paralyzed for nearly an hour. And then the pain started in my whole body. Um, and, I actually had to interview a potential new staff member for a very large client of mine. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do it? My arm's paralyzed. I can't take any notes. And then I thought, okay, great. I'm going to record it because it's on Zoom. And I'll just tell them that I'm recording it because it's easier. But meanwhile, it's because I can't actually move my arm, you
Yeah.
know? and and yeah, so I experience this very, very regularly. And the thing that happened with this paralysis, before the paralysis, I actually used to hide my medical issues. So
Yeah.
I put on
Yeah.
this very, very brave face. I used to, Jacqueline, we've known each other for a long time. I used to wear
Yeah.
a lot of makeup, really nice clothes. I used to always present myself in a really, really great way. But inside, I was literally dying from
Right. Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
pain,
Yeah.
from my body shutting down, from all of these things. And I never told anybody really. And there was a really big inauthenticity in that, in showing up one way and looking like I'm
Spectacular, I might say.
really good, and then I'm actually, you know, pretty much on my deathbed inside. And um in 2021, when I was paralyzed, all of a sudden I was stripped of every single shred of my identity. I actually say that I nearly died 3 times because I feel like that
Mm.
was a death
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
rebirth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually think of it as the greatest gift I've ever received in my life because it it brought me into who I truly am. And all of a sudden, I couldn't actually, these pretenses, this facade that I put on, I couldn't do that anymore because I was literally in a wheelchair. And for the first time in my life, I had to ask for help. Hearing my story, you can probably safe to assume that I never asked for help. I was always the one giving the help and doing, and it was very, very hard for me to receive. But all of a sudden, I'm literally paralyzed, and I have to rely on other people to do everything for me. And I learned a lot of lessons, and I was really, really humbled. But one of the biggest and most scariest things that I did was to come out to the world that I'm actually really sick.
I remember
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I remember writing a post and I put it on all my social media, and then I sat there so scared, literally like freaking out, thinking that I just blew up my life. Because if people knew how sick I was, if people knew that there's something wrong with my brain, I get paid for my brain. I get, that's this
Yeah.
this is the thinking that I had. I get paid for what's in here, and what's in there is failing. And if people knew that, I would for sure kill my business. And it was a very, very vulnerable thing for me to do, to
I-
let
Yeah.
everybody know. But the most
And what
amazing thing
what
happened.
happened? Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
the most amazing thing happened, which was actually my business blew up. I had my biggest year. And thankfully, I had just before that, I had received a message to hire somebody, that I needed to hire somebody, and I hired someone, my sister, and I had
Mm.
all of my processes in place. So even though I was in hospital and she had just started a month before, she was able to run the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was amazing. But we had our biggest year that year, and then for the last uh, 3-4 years, I've consistently hit that turnover figure, and it's been amazing because the last 3-4 years I've been recovering, and my life now I've come to terms with the fact that I am probably permanently disabled. So there are times where I need to use a wheelchair. There are times where I can become paralyzed out of nowhere, and then that's just it for me for that day or for those hours or whatever it looks like. And then I have to rebuild after that every single time. And you can imagine if that's happened over 100 times for me in the last 4 years, it's a lot
It is a lot.
to
It's incredible. I mean, virtually, I can barely grasp it.
um yeah, so the pain, not only physical pain and the paralysis, it brought the highest level of physical pain that I have ever experienced in my life. And I thought that I was okay with pain with my endometriosis. There are some times where I literally faint from the pain. It's that intense that my body shuts down and I faint. This pain was worse, and it's lasted the whole time, but it lasted for a year consecutively. The pain didn't go away. So nerve pain, full body pain, to the point where I literally felt it from the tip of my head to the bottom of my feet. I couldn't wear clothes if I was in so much pain. Like touching my body lightly would be so excruciating for me. So I literally even changed my whole identity, even to do with my clothes, because I couldn't wear the clothes that I used to wear.
Yeah,
Um, I couldn't go outside. I'm extremely light sensitive now, so I can't drive at night. I can't look at lights. It's basically my whole life has changed. So it's been the physical pain, but also the emotional, the mental pain of literally losing your whole identity and then having to rebuild again.
yeah,
And that is a big teacher. If you want to look at that in terms of entrepreneurship, to be a successful entrepreneur, to have a successful business, you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to deal with the pain. My clients say to me all the time, it's just one problem after another. When's it going to get easier? I fix this and
never.
then this happens. And I have to say to them, actually, never. It never gets easier. It's about increasing your resilience, your capacity to
Mm,
be with those things that happen.
yeah,
Because when we become business owners, we kind of sign up for that. We kind of sign up for the unpredictability, the dealing with the issues. If you have a team, what's happening with your team, with their family, all of that becomes your responsibility now. So you don't get to kind of tap out and say, well, when's it going to end? And even if everything's perfect in your business, you're going to get to the next level where you're dealing with new
absolutely.
challenges. And it's not necessarily that it's always bad in terms of having to deal with things, but the challenges that you need to be able to deal with, respond to. And only by increasing your capacity to be with that, your resilience around it, is how you deal with it, because it's never going to
Yeah,
go away. And I
yeah,
guess that's my viewpoint on life and on pain as well. You get to create what your reality looks like. Now, I didn't get to choose what's happened to me in terms of my health, in terms of my family, in terms of my career and being bullied and all of these things. I didn't choose that, but I get to choose how I respond to that, how I'm going to be with that, how I'm going to show up every single moment of every single day, and who I'm going to be in those moments. I get to choose that, and that's what creates my reality. The thoughts that I have around that, the 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 impact that I let it have on me is what creates my reality.
Beaut- beautifully said, and so much wisdom in there.
Thank
Getting
you.
quite emotional. Yeah, I think look, I think there is so much in your story, and we're kind of coming to the end of it. It's almost, for a lot of people, too, too big to grasp. Because you're sitting here, I'm looking at you, you look beautiful, and obviously we can't see, if there is a challenge or if you can't walk for the day. And that's on top of everything else you're doing, and then it's teaching you something, and you're taking the best from it. This is spectacular. Yeah, I think I want to leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think of it as spectacular or anything special. I just think of it as this is this is my journey and this is what it is.
Yeah,
And I have a
yeah,
choice. I have a
Yeah.
choice in how I respond to that, and
That's,
that's
yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
That is your life. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what else is coming out from your life and what else is showing up. And I hope we see you for many, many years because I can see there's something great and big, forming up at the horizon. And I hope our listeners enjoyed this episode. I did very much. There's so much in there. Oh, we haven't spoken about your book. Here we
Oh,
go, The
yeah.
Lost Art of Being Human. So it's a
Uh,
community book where you have your own chapter in here, and it's beautiful. I mean, I've read the book. We'll put a link to the website in the description box so people can purchase the book if they wish so. And it has just stories of different people going through life and learning different things and reconnecting with what it means to be human. Well, I think in this world we've lost it a bit, what it
mm,
means to be human, and we've sold us out. And this is going, it's not necessarily going back, but going towards, what's our purpose here as human being. And your chapter is around, also pain as a
pain.
teacher in your business
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, which is a beautiful chapter. So
Thank you.
yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. And I thank you so much for being so open, vulnerable, and authentic with your story. I think whoever listens to this story, you will learn a lot.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
You're
I really
welcome.
appreciate the conversation.
You're welcome.